Thank you, and thanks everybody for showing up this afternoon. I'm going to take the opportunity to tell you about one of the most exciting exploration plays in Canada in 2019. When we announced our discovery of 100 meters of 5% copper equivalent last year, it was quite a catalyst for the company. We have traded 85 million shares since that time, and it has generated the excitement that allowed us to do financing where we were able to raise $5.2 million in a charity flow-through financing at 100% premium to our trading price at the time. And also, thank you very much, Pear Tree, for facilitating that, and also to Teck, who was the back-end buyer of that financing and ended up owning 13.8% of our company. So it's an exciting time for us now to follow up on those results in 2019. I will have forward-looking statements in this presentation. So the theme I'd like you to go home with today is disruptive discovery. Imagine how exciting it would have been for the original discoverers of diamonds in the Northwest Territories. When I was going to school to become a geologist, it was common knowledge that the North American craton was too young to host diamonds. They weren't going to be found, and yet they were, and there's been a tremendously profitable industry that's been built on the back of that. Similarly, at Eskay Creek, nobody thought that a high-grade VMS deposit would be found in that area, but it was found, and it became the world's highest-grade gold mine. And similarly, the Fruta del Norte discovery down in Ecuador more recently has been an absolutely tremendous discovery that will generate a lot of excitement in the future. So these are all things that were found where they shouldn't have been found. They didn't fit the geologic model, and it changed the way people thought about the geology of the area. And I think we've got a similar situation with Stardust. 100 meters of 5% copper equivalent is not what people were expecting us to come up with in our 2018 drill program. And yet that's what we found. A high-grade interval that would be exceptional in any carbonate replacement deposit on the planet, and everybody knows all the good CRDs are found in northern Mexico. So here we are with a good CRD discovery in northern British Columbia, not where you would expect it to be. So I'll tell you a few things about the fundamentals of the project now that I've got your attention. We own 100% of the project. There's no royalties or underlying ownership on the project, so we've got 100% of it. This is a data-rich environment. So this is a company that's backed by Oxygen Group, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Oxygen when we get toward the end of the presentation. But the common thing in the whole group of companies is to go out and find data-rich environments. So we like to go into projects where there's been a lot of exploration work done by previous owners that we can stand on their shoulders because the project's been heavily de-risked by the work that they've done. And in the case of Stardust, we've actually had $28 million worth of exploration work previously done on the project. That resulted in 87,000 meters of drilling, 427 drill holes. So quite a substantial amount of work. That defined a corridor of mineralization that was 2.2 kilometers long, ranging from porphyry mineralization, copper gold skarn, zinc silver rich mantos, and high-grade epithermal precious metal veins. So when we first picked up the project, first thing we did was go in and validate that historic work, and we updated the 43-101 resource, and you can see it there in the table at the bottom of the page. Almost 3 million tons of close to 3% copper equivalent. So we're off to a pretty good start with numbers like that. Just to put that in context, the only other well-known CRD deposit in British Columbia is Silvertip. Silvertip was sold to Coeur in 2017 for $200 million US. And at the time of the sale, their resource was just slightly smaller than what you see there in our 43-101 statement. So it is a fairly good, strong start in terms of where we're at on the project. The project is located in north central British Columbia. So those of you that know British Columbia, the geographic center of the province is a city by the name of Prince George. Prince George has over 100,000 people. If you can't get it in Prince George, you can't get it anywhere. So it's a good supply center to have nearby. We're a 4-hour drive to the northwest of Prince George. It's in an industrial area. There's been logging in the area for decades, so there's a good network of roads and good infrastructure in the area. We've got power in the area. There's rail 38 kilometers to the west. There's a local workforce, And we're in the interior of the province. So we have low rolling topography. There's no precipitous terrain there that makes it difficult to work there. And we have interior climatic conditions. So in the wintertime, we get 4 or 5 feet of snow. We're not 40 or 50 feet of snow like you hear about in some other parts of the province. So we can easily work there 12 months out of the year. I think it's notable that we are in the traditional territory of Takla First Nation. The Takla are a small community, but an entrepreneurial one. The chief is a former logger and a businessman. We've signed an exploration agreement with them. They're stakeholders in the company, and we've actually been able to work closely with the community. They did all of our earthworks in our 2018 exploration program. They did all of our lumber supply, and we're continually working with the community and building up the number of people that we have on staff from the local community. So this is the geologic model that was developed by Dr. Peter McGaw. So if you're not familiar with that name, Peter is the founder of MAG Silver and considered by most to be the world's preeminent authority on carbonate replacement systems. Now, Peter and I got to know each other well because when I was with Imperial Metals for 24 years, part of that time I spent managing the Silvertip project, which I mentioned was the only other well-known CRD in the province. I was the first guy to hire Peter to come to work in British Columbia as a consultant. And after we'd worked together at Silvertip, he went on to work at Stardust. And Stardust was very important to his development of this carbonate replacement model because it's one of the few systems in the world that is fully integrated with all these components, the mineralized copper moly porphyry, the copper gold skarn rind around that, the zinc silver rich mantle part of the system, and then the high-grade epithermal veins in the periphery. Most projects, when you go to them with carbonate replacement deposit, you'll find only the chimney mantle part of the system or the skarn part of the system, but not usually all of those components there. The discovery on Stardust was actually in the high-grade epithermal veins in 1944. Prospectors over the years had worked their way back into the mantle part of the system and spent a lot of time exploring there in the 70s and 80s. It was actually Peter McGaw that put the first drill hole into the copper gold skarn part of the system, and that's where the focus of effort has been ever since then. And we think that in 2018, we were the first group to actually tap into the proximal part of the skarn system where you're actually getting into thicker, more robust, richer mineralization. So just to show you that we not only have good size and size potential on the project, but we've also got a substantial amount of grade in the project. You can see here in the skarn part of the system, 15 meters of 2% copper, 24 grams gold, and 135 grams silver. I think that gold intercept is going to catch your attention in almost any deposit, much less with the copper and silver with it. In the mantle part of the system, 4.1 meters of a percent copper, 2 grams gold, 360 grams silver, and 17% zinc. So that's $1,000 gross metal value rock, high margin material. And then if you get out into the veins, you're at least 2.5 kilometers away from the source of those mineralizing fluids. There's still enough strength in the system to form 5 meters of 13 grams gold and 900 grams per ton silver. So we've got good size and size potential in the system. We've got high grade from one end to the other. Now it's a matter of going out and doing systematic exploration to see if we can find more of it. So this was our thought as we went into our 2018 exploration program. We wanted to be in the heart of the system, so in that copper gold skarn part of the system that was close to the mineralizing fluids. And our thought was that if we could find the fluid feeder pathways that were leading back to where the source of those fluids are, we would get into these thicker, richer parts of the feeders for the system. And you can see we got a number of targets that we developed there. The green ones are geologic targets. The purple ones are geophysical targets, so conductors that had come out of a VTEM survey that we conducted earlier in the year. And the yellow ones are extensional targets. So looking at the resource, looking along strike and down dip to see if we could find those fluid feeder pathways. And here's I'll go back here. You can see, hopefully, there's a north-south section there looking west. That's a long section. And an east-west section looking north. That's a cross section. We'll look at those two views next. You can see the long section here. This is an image of the three-dimensional grade shells that we developed in our computer model. And this is one of the things that we actually did that gives us a big leg up on the previous operators. this is the first time that anybody's taken the effort to actually put all of the data that had been gathered on the project and put it into a computerized database so that we can do three-dimensional modeling. That took us 4 months over the past winter and 2 months this most recent winter to get that data all together, and we think that we've got a very complete database at this point. These are all grade shells that were developed using that three-dimensional modeling, and you can see the monocolored grade shells are ones that were further into the page and projected forward. The ones that are multicolored are grade shells that are off the current plane. And of course, the hotter the color, the higher the grade. And you can see down at the bottom, there's not a pointer here, but hopefully you can see down at the bottom there's a good multicolored polygon that actually looks like it's dipping about 15 degrees down to the north, and it's getting higher grade in that direction. So it was simply a matter of wanting to drill off the end of that and seeing if we could find an extension of that mineralization. We'll just look at the cross-section now of that same area. This is the drill hole that drilled through that target. Now, the target was actually up right at the top of that image, and you can see the yellow with red stripes through it is skarn alteration. No mineralization with that where we were going through the target area, but there was lots of hydrothermal alteration. So we knew that there had been a lot of fluids that passed through this area, and so we kept on drilling. We went across a fault, got into more good skarn alteration, and sure enough, you can see from the solid red bars, that's where the mineralization is. The top interval there was 36.5 meters of almost 8% copper equivalent. So on the basis of that one lens, that would have been one of the best copper drill holes in Canada last year. Then we went through a barren zone, 11.2 meters of not limestone anymore, marble. It had been really cooked up, so lots of heat in the area. And then sure enough, we got back into another massive sulfide lens. So another 29.1 meters of 6.5% copper equivalent. So the entire interval from top to bottom, when you include some disseminated mineralization up above, gave us a nice even 100 meters of 4.99% copper equivalent. Spectacular intercept, and like I said previously, that is something that would catch your eye in any deposit in the world in terms of a carbonate replacement system. So Dr. McGaw has seen more of these types of systems, I can probably fairly safely say, than anybody else on the planet. And he's put together a checklist of the characteristics or the features that you see in the big, robust systems, the ones that you want to own. And we felt pretty good when we went down this checklist. We got an emphatic yes in every one of the check boxes, except, of course, the top one, are you on Main Street CRD in northern Mexico? And we're not. We're in northern BC. But it's very reassuring to us that we've got all those hallmark features that you want to see, indicating that you're in a big system that's going to have good tonnage potential and grade. We put this image together to demonstrate the ease of access for us. The top of the mineralized intercept in hole 421 is actually 500 meters down hole. And so we were wondering about how difficult that would be to get down to. Well, we don't have steep precipitous terrain on the property, but we do have quite a bit of topographic relief, and we can go down to the south and collar a portal down there. A 2.1 kilometer run will get us down into that mineralization in 421. So that's a relatively reasonable expectation for the thicknesses and grades that we're getting there. When I was working at the Goldstream mine in southeastern British Columbia, we were mining a horizon of 1.2 meters thick of 4% copper. It was a 3 kilometer drive down to the face, and we were doing that when copper was at 67 cents a pound. So I think that if we can prove up enough tonnage, the economics of this sort of access would be pretty robust. So for 2019, we're going to, 2 slides. Okay. 2019, we completed the merger with Lorraine Copper already, so we had an option to earn 100% in the project. And we've actually, rather than completing the earn-in, we just took over the company that held the property, and that's given us 100% ownership of the project with no royalties. So that's been a big boost for us. We did it much more inexpensively than actually doing the earn-in. So it was a win-win situation for both us and Lorraine. We're going to be starting drilling anytime now. The guys are up on site and have already opened up camp. The drillers are on site, so drilling should be starting sometime soon. And we're going to have 2 drills going. We've got an approved budget of $5.4 million. That'll give us at least 15,000 meters of drilling. and we're going to employ directional diamond drilling with this year's program, so we can very precisely step out in the direction and distance that we want to see if we can define this, the orientation and size of this new zone that we're into. Keep in mind that this is the only intercept. This is the only drill hole that's on the footwall side of that fault that I was showing on the cross section. So we've got 360 degrees of open ground around us in this intercept. And I just wanted to bring up flight to quality. We've been getting a lot of attention for this project, and it's due to two factors, really. Number one, we're in a Tier 1 jurisdiction. There's a lot of companies that are tired of being in places where you wake up in the morning and have a new partner you didn't know about the night before. And the list of countries that are like that is growing longer every day, it seems. And the other thing about flight to quality, high-grade projects like this are very difficult to come by. And you know, there have been a lot of very large, low-grade projects put into production in recent years. They're high capital cost. Projects like this present a much lower risk opportunity to put a good mine into production. There's our capital structure right now. We've actually got about 122 million shares outstanding right now. That number keeps on changing because we've got 25 million warrants that are in the money, and we keep seeing redemption of those. So that's a nice slow trickle of cash into the kitty for us. And actually those warrants are callable when we hit 70 cents. I think we're trading at about 60 cents right now. And so there's a good chance that we can call those warrants, and that'll bring another $9 million in total into our treasury. And there's a description of the financing I was telling you about earlier that we did with Teck just before Christmas. That's the photograph of the directors and management. There's a lot of experience of people that have been able to do things in this industry in that image. What's not shown there is the dream team of geology, which is our technical advisory team. Peter McGaw is on it. Jerry Ray is a world-renowned expert in skarn deposits. Jim Oliver is a well-known explorationist in British Columbia with a good discovery record behind him. So we've taken the effort to surround ourselves with good people that have a great success record, and I think that's helping us move the company forward much more quickly. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any further questions about Stardust, don't hesitate to give me a call. I'm easy to get a hold of. And if you check out our website, we've actually got some great videos on the website. Went up to a site with Peter McGaw after we made the discovery, and we took some short 2-minute long videos. And Peter's such a great professor. He explains things in a very easy to understand manner, and it's hard not to get excited when you hear him talking about the project. So please go ahead and check that out.